Evening, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gallardo,
No.
Commissioner Zavala,
Here.
Chair Garcia.
Here. And I'd like to see if we could have a motion to excuse Vice Chair Martinez and Commissioner Urquidez unless they come in late.
I make a motion.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to excuse their absence and then if they come in late. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Commissioner Zavala, could you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We are now on D, public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda?
Yes, we do have one.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Laura and I have a question. Is there already talks about, or have you guys started talking to contractors regarding 12th Street? The second part of Mongolian Apartments is going pretty fast. Yeah, I don't think there should be a delay after that gets done, still putting that plan on hold to fix that street. And also in regards to the Greenfield sign, new elections are gonna be coming up. The promises from City Council we still don't see any signs up. And I think that's just like a one-day kind of thing that it's been delayed too long. I think you guys need to push it on to get those signs up. It's been so long. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Laura. We're not, since it's not on the agenda, we really can't address it. So, but I do know that both items have been before the planning and the council, and it's just a matter of getting it done. So are there any other public comments?
No, there's no more.
Okay. Is my mic on? Okay, I'll close out public comments and move on to the consent agenda. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda. The first is the adoption of the August 2 to 2022 Planning Commission minutes. The second item is approval of numerical addresses for Woodridge Townhomes project. And the third is the approval of numerical addresses for Walnut Grove phases 2 and 3 project.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the August 2nd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second that.
Well, actually, all 3 of those items are on a consent agenda, so we can approve all 3 in one fell swoop if you move to approve the consent agenda, right? You can pull it for discussion if you want to. Hi.
Bernardo, or do you want to pull it for discussion, or should I move on with?
No, let's just move on.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes for the August 2nd meeting, and then the approved the numerical addresses for Woodridge Townhomes project, and the numerical addresses for Walnut Grove phase 2 and 3 project.
You have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Do we still have to do roll call votes or do we do all in favor?
I think you can do all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Now we can move on to F, public hearings. Our first hearing is the consideration of a resolution recommending that the city council approve a rezone and general plan amendment for a 0.41 acre project site at the southeast corner of Elm Avenue and St. Charles Place. Assessor parcel numbers 024-392-001 through 006. We have a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, commissioners. This is Rob Mullane. I'm a consulting planner with the city. And if you give me a second here, I'll be able to share my screen. All right. Thanks for your patience. So this is a project that was before you just a couple months ago for a design review approval. It's the Stonebridge Townhomes project at the corner of St. Charles and Elm. And they are back this evening requesting a rezone and a general amendment or general plan amendment to the map to redesignate the site and to rezone the site to essentially dispense with a requirement that was of the part of the design review requirement, which was that the units had to be live work. And the reason the units needed to be live work is there's a long history of entitlements on this project all the way back to the before the Creek Bridge approvals. And the site has an underlying commercial zoning district. And because of that underlying current commercial zoning district, there was the allowance for townhomes at this site as long as they were live work. Well, the applicant, Mr. Hugh Walker, has indicated that it will be very difficult to market the property if there's this live work deed restriction for the unit. So he's asking for really a very minor, in this case, minor change to the allowed uses. The process for changing those allowed uses is a general plan amendment and zoning amendment, which are often fairly significant decisions for the city. So just as a refresher, this is the project at the southeast corner of St. Charles and Elm. I mentioned the current zoning is downtown commercial. There is a mixed use overlay and a planned development overlay and a gateway overlay that all apply. They're proposing to rezone the site to a straight residential, to a multifamily residential zoning district, which would allow the townhome development exactly as you saw it two months ago with the 6 townhomes on the 6 individual small lots. But it would also, as I said, get rid of the current restriction to live work. Some of the prior approvals that I alluded to are the Arroyo Seco subdivision and Creek Bridge master plan that was approved back in 2003 for a large area of the city in this part of the city. And that was the first institution of the live work use for these small townhomes. Then when in 2007, there was a planned development that was specific to the nearly 2 acre area that within Creek Bridge that included the site, that requirement of live work remained. There was a final map recorded as I mentioned 2 months ago for the project site, which established the small lots. The lots were recorded back in 2011. And then 2 months ago was your action on the design review. So what this looks like in terms of the paperwork that would be required is a change to the city's land use element, land use designation map. And it would, the city has a land use designation map as part of the general plan. It is in the land use element that those would need to be changed to show what's essentially behind you for the zoning changes. A commercially designated parcel would be moving to a medium density residential parcel. The related rezone would be as shown on this figure. The existing zoning would be changed from the commercial zoning to multiple family residential. They would retain the PD overlay. There are no design changes. It's the exact same project that you saw 2 months ago, just is modifying that use restriction. So this is a public hearing. Once the public hearing is completed and the commission has completed your deliberations, then staff does recommend approval of a recommendation to the to the city council that the council approve the requested general plan amendment and rezone for the Stonebridge Townhomes development. So with that, I'll conclude my staff presentation.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Mullane. Are there any initial questions for Mr. Mullane before we go out to the public hearing, before we open the public hearing? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Do you have any comments? Is the developer here?
Garcia, Commissioner, my name is Hugh Walker. And the applicant, so I was here a couple months ago, as Bob said, and I'm just going to reiterate what's in the package, basically, which is as we discovered that there was a deed restriction for live work that dates back to 2003 approvals. We find it difficult to be able to market that to the true idea of live work, which is you've got a business downstairs and you're living upstairs, and you've got people parking out front who are coming in and out as clients. And Elmwood's already a pretty busy street. There's only 4 parallel parking spots in front of those 6 lots. We had a discussion prior to the design review with the fire department. And one of the concessions that we had made was to enlarge the driveways in the back to accommodate for 2 full parking spots. As opposed to the rest of the driveways that are initially only 8 feet. We made these 20 feet with 2-car garages because of the lack of parking out front. So something like this, where you try to sell to a person who has to have a business and it wouldn't go over because they'd never have any place to park it. You'd be parking in people's front yard, you'd be parking across the street, crossing Elm, or parking over where the apartment complexes are and things like that. And so it just didn't. It seemed like these 6 lots have been sitting for such a long time, it would be a good use to just sell them as straight residential. And then the people could park in the back all the time. So that was our mindset behind that request.
Can I ask you, you're with Stonebridge Homes.
Yes.
Did you absorb Creek Bridge, or are you still part of Creek Bridge? Are you part of the original?
I've been with Creek Bridge, I've been with Stonebridge Homes, Creek Bridge for 35 years. Creek Bridge was a company name that we built under for many years. This was one of the projects that we built in Greenville. We did several projects in Greenville, Lexington Square, Traditions, Green Oaks, St. Charles Place. We built in King City, predominantly Salinas. We did a big subdivision, 500 Plant View, and it was called Creek Bridge. And then we sort of took on the name as a construction company. When the market fell apart and we went from 120 people in the company down to 15 people in the company, the whole name kind of had to go away because of everything having closed down. We were, unfortunately, it's public information, we were giving land back to the bank. We were having to sell things. That's why we don't own those apartments and retail over there that had to get sold to pay off, the bank and things like that. So nevertheless, because of things like that happening, names changed for a lot of different companies, and ours ended up going, Creekbridge ended up going away, and we didn't do any building for about 5 years. And we started up again in 2012, and we took on the name Stonebridge, just seemed to work, and we've been predominantly building in Hollister. And then we decided that, hey, we got these 6 lots, why don't we go ahead and fill these in? We've got some manpower that can come down and make it happen. So I say all of that to say, yes, we were Creekbridge at one time.
Okay, all right.
That's a long story to get there, right?
Yeah, well, I was curious, so thank you for that. Are there any other public comments for the public hearing portion? Okay, I'll close out. Are there any online or hands raised?
No, there's no
Okay.
further comments.
All right, I'll close out the public hearing. And we can move to planning commission discussion and decision. Anybody want to start off?
Well, I personally don't see this having an adverse effect of what the original plan. So from my perspective, there's no reason to move forward with it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I understand the difficulty of having a business downstairs and doing the live work situation. So I am supportive of making this change as well.
So what I'm wondering is, so we're doing a minor change, but it's actually an amendment to our general plan and zoning. Since this project was a plan development in 2007, is there a mechanism to just make it specific to this project? Or do we have to go through the motion of amending the general plan? Because my concern is, how does this amendment affect future live work developments? And I hear you with your concerns about your particular site with the limited parking, but I do know other cities are successful with it. In fact, Alvarado Street in downtown Monterey, they have live work apartments, and it looks like a really fun place to live actually in that area.
Madam Chair, if I may, it's a very good question. The general plan amendment and the zoning amendment are map amendments only. They only affect the St. Charles Place site. They only affect this one property. So any other project that had a similar live work restriction, and I'm not aware of any other projects in the city that have that, would have to be considered on their own merits. So
Okay,
you're not changing any policies in the general plan, you're just changing the map.
okay.
So,
But this
I'm sorry.
specific site. only.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not setting a precedent here, are we?
No, it's specific to the
Okay.
0.41 acre site.
Those are my only two concerns. So if anybody's ready to move further on this, you're welcome.
I make a motion that we approve I move that the planning commission adopt resolution 2022 we don't have one yet, recommending that the city council, one, amend the city of Greenfield general plan to reclassify certain real property at the southeast corner of Elm Avenue and St. Charles Place from downtown commercial to medium density residential, and two, amend the city of Greenfield zoning map to rezone the subject property from retail business with a gateway and mixed use overlay to multiple family residential.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. The only thing I did want to mention too is I'm gonna miss having that empty lot, because when we have Christmas in the park, that's where we park the horse and carriage. But I guess we'll have to find somewhere else.
And Madam Chair and Commission, that, just for your information, that's resolution 2022-09.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the second public hearing, which is consideration of a resolution recommending that the city council approve a rezone, general plan amendment, land use designation change, zoning code, text amendment, conditional use permit, and design review permit for the development of a 3-story, 36,400 square foot building with 32 multifamily residential units, a convenience store and laundromat on a 1.42 acre project site on the east side of 4th Street between Apple and Palm Avenue. Assessor parcel numbers 024011. I think that's missing some digits, but
And thank you again, Madam Chair. I'll be presenting this one as well. Has a different mouse than my laptop, so it's giving me stuff. Um, All right, I think my presentation's up there for the benefit of I looked around to see if the applicant or the architect was here. Are you, you're not Ilya, are you? No, yeah, no, okay. Okay, all right. So this is in contrast to the last project that involved a general plan amendment and a rezone, this is a more significant one because it does include both map amendments that are specific to the site, and then also text amendments in the general plan and the zoning code. So I'll walk you through that. What I was hoping that the applicant or the architect would be here this evening to walk you through the design, because I know the project plans were pretty small and they're hard to see. And the commission may have questions too. So I'm a little bit surprised they're not here to present the project. Maybe they thought that the item would start later, but if they join us, great. If not, I will, what I can do is I can go through my PowerPoint presentation, which doesn't spend very much time on the architecture of the project, and then go to our staff report and look in more detail on some of the architecture. But before you, for this project, it's called the Palmas de Greenfield project, is a general plan amendment, a rezone, a conditional use permit, and a design review. And this is for a larger site. It's about 1.5 acres. It is the undeveloped long strip of land adjacent to 4th Street between Palm and Apple Avenues. There's a small bite out of the project at the southern end, but it's mainly a rectangularly shaped parcel. It has frontage on all 3 streets. Obviously, the primary frontage is on 4th Street, and in this case, there's no intervening private property between 4th Street and the Highway 101 corridor. So it's, in a sense, it's also fronting on Highway 101. There will not be any intervening development. The project architect is David Elliott. The applicants are Eduardo and Helia Kudelenk, and they have been at this project for a few years now, essentially since before I started with the city as a consulting planner. It's gone through some iterations, mainly because of limitations with the highway commercial zoning, and or not necessarily limitations, but a conflict with what that allowed and what the applicants wanted on the site and what the banks were willing to fund the site. The latest iteration and what they're proposing now is a 36,000 and change square foot building. There are 32 multifamily units and 3,200 square feet of commercial development. The commercial development would be two different 1,600 foot tenant improvements. There would be a laundry mat on one of the 1,600 square foot components, and the second would be a convenience store. And they are proposing to have off-site alcohol sales for beer and wine as part of the convenience store. So the convenience store and the laundromat would be open not just to the residents that live in the development, but they would be open to the public. So anybody in the city or outside the city could drive to the site, park in the parking lot, and utilize those services or walk, or it's open to the public. It's not limited to the residents. The applicant explained that it was important to have a commercial component with the residential for the bank loan that they were pursuing. The other components of the project are an 82 space parking lot. There's extensive landscaping in the parking lot area, as well as the frontage. 4th Street, there's a parkway, there's a new sidewalk. And then very importantly for Public Works, there are drainage improvements along the west side of 4th Street that will better divert from a ponding situation that often occurs in that area. If you've been there after heavy rains, there's some drainage improvements that should very significantly reduce the flooding that occurs on kind of the northwest corner of the site by the Apple Avenue intersection. Again, I was hoping it would be here to go through some of the site plans and elevations, but I think this is probably the best figure to give you a sense of what the design of the site is. So it's a mix of a 3-story building components and 2-story building components. It is brought forward to the 4th Street frontage so that the parking would be behind the buildings in the back. And that's important because there are existing residences, a whole neighborhood on the west, or I'm sorry, the east side of this development that are primarily single-story, single-family homes. So the initial design had parking in the front on 4th Street, and the buildings were pushed towards the east, and staff and the architect were able to come up with a different design that would provide some separation between the multifamily uses and the single-family uses to the east. The commercial component would be on the ground floor, kind of in the center of the site. So in this area, you can see the new sidewalk. In this area, sorry, would be the two 1,600 square foot spaces. You can see the new parking lot and landscaping. Those drainage improvements I was talking about would be in this portion of 4th Street on the west side. And you can see it ties into the sidewalk, the existing sidewalk on Apple and on Palm. And I would be happy to go through the site plans in more detail since the project architect is not here. So the proposed general plan amendment and rezone involves again, another map amendment. So it's very similar to the Stonebridge project. You would have a map change to the land use map from commercial highway or highway commercial designation to medium density residential. And that hatched pattern on the figure to the left is for the mixed use overlay designation that would no longer be needed. So that would be removed as well. The zoning map amendment would look very similar to this. It's going from commercial highway to multiple family residential, which is a medium density residential. So there's text amendments to the general plan and to the zoning code are, again, to allow, the purpose of those is to allow a limited commercial component on a multifamily zone site. So there's a specific sentence that needs to be modified in the land use element, which is one of the chapters of the general plan. And that's on page 215 of the land use element, and it's up on the screen. The red text is added text. So there are limited non-residential uses that are anticipated for the medium density land use, residential land use designation in the general plan. And those would be like worship, places of worship, rather, schools, home occupations, parks, recreation facilities, very minor things, daycare facilities. This amendment would add this new text, as well as for limited neighborhood commercial uses accessory to medium density residential uses such as laundromats, convenience stores, neighborhood markets, and cafes. So it's kind of taking the mixed use ordinance and flipping it around. So you have primarily residential and just limited commercial. In the zoning ordinance, because it tends to be more specific, there are more specific changes that are needed. What's shown on the screen here are it's an excerpt from our allowed uses table. So every zoning designation has certain uses that are allowed, certain uses that are only allowed with a conditional use permit, and other uses that are not allowed. And so the changes to the zoning code would be, again, highlighted in red here, under the heading of residential, under retail service and office listings, there would be this new category of limited neighborhood commercial uses, which is defined in a footnote. And that would not be allowed in the first few zoning districts, which are the lower density residential. It would be allowed in the medium density residential only, or in between the single family and the higher density. It would also be allowed in commercial zoning districts. That's why you see the Ps for permitted in the middle of that table. Those are the commercial districts. It's probably a little bit clearer in the staff report, but I didn't want to put too much text up on the PowerPoint. So the important thing is there's a footnote with that CUP requirement. So if a multifamily residential development wanted to include some limited commercial uses, they would need to apply for a conditional use permit, which would be considered and either granted or denied on a case-by-case basis. And it gives some guidance below on that footnote number 34, which would be a new footnote in the table. And that says, neighborhood serving commercial uses include such uses as laundromats, convenience stores, neighborhood markets, cafe or specialty shops, and have hours of operation limited to 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. So there's some controls on that. These would not be 24/7 operations. Neighborhood serving commercial uses in the RM zoning district are limited to no more than, one building on an RM zone parcel. Number two, no more than 15% of the total floor area of the building that supports both the residential and the commercial uses. And number three, the first floor of a 2- or 3-story building. And it goes on to add another sentence that says, for neighborhood markets or convenience stores, alcoholic beverages may be allowed with a CUP. So because this primarily residential development would have limited commercial uses, they do need a CUP, assuming that the general plan amendment and the rezone and the zoning ordinance text amendment are approved. If they're not approved, there's no CUP permit here. The project would have to be redesigned. But if the land use designation changes and the zoning changes, then they need a CUP for both having the laundromat and the convenience store uses in this development, and then also to allow and put some parameters on the sales of alcoholic beverages, which again would be beer and wine for offsite consumption only. There wouldn't be any tasting rooms, any bar per se. It's just sale for offsite consumption of beer and wine. And then the fourth permit would be a design review for the architecture, and all this would be elevated to the city council for their final decision because of the rezone and the general plan amendment. So just like in the last application, you're making a recommendation to city council, you would be making a recommendation to city council on all 4 components: the general plan amendment, the zoning ordinance amendment, the conditional use permit, and design review. And there's a rather involved resolution that walks you through the findings that need to be made for that. And then the city council would take this up for first reading and action on the general plan amendment, all the project approvals, and then the ordinance for the rezone would have to go back to the city council at second reading. Now, should And this is one that there is a staff recommendation. I do know that it is it's an important decision for the city whenever you're considering rezoning a large site, especially one that's very visible. So the staff recommendation at this point is that the planning commission adopt the resolution 2022-10, recommending that the city council approve the requested general plan amendment and rezone. And that should not say Stonebridge Homes Development, that should say the Palmas, the Greenfield project. And I'm sure you have questions, and we may have speakers, or we do have speakers in the audience. But if you're inclined to approve the resolution, there's a pretty long recommended motion that's in the agenda packet.
Right.
So I'm happy to show any of the architecture. Even if there's questions that come up from the commission of the public, we can flip to the online version and show those and discuss them. Other than that, I'll conclude my remarks.
Okay, thank you for that staff report. Are there any initial questions before we open the public hearing?
No, if you could go back to the first slide that you showed us, where you showed the front of the project, the back,
Sure.
please.
This one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now, where would the laundromat and the convenience store be located?
So this is the front. So this is the 4th Street
Right,
frontage. This is the back where the
Right.
parking lot would be. So one's actually looking towards the neighborhoods on top. This is looking towards the
towards
4th
the
Street
street.
frontage. They're centrally located in these two building components here on the ground floor. So each of these components, the footprint is about 1,600 square feet. So one of those would be the laundromat on the ground floor with 2 stories of residential development on top of it. The other one would be the convenience store. And there would be a door entry from the sidewalk as well as door entry from the parking lot in the back.
So there's actually going to be a residence on top of the laundromat as well as a convenience store?
Yes, yes. So they would, it's a mixed use building. So they're, and in that proposed zoning ordinance amendment, there's a requirement that it's the ground floor with other units above. And there are, it's more of a concern, I think, for bars and more noisy environments, but there's noise insulation that can be done to kind of make sure that the residents above these uses are not living with paper thin walls.
Okay.
So I have a question. So the laundromat will be open for everyone, not just for this property, correct?
Correct.
So does a property have hookups for washer and dryers?
It's a great question. I'll have to look at the plans. I don't think so. I think that's one of the reasons for the rendering. But let me confirm that. If we turn to the design review items, I'll look into that and come back to you.
Okay. The whole parking situation, if it's open for everyone, 88 parking spaces, is that what it is?
There's 82 spaces,
82.
and some of those, there will be, as a condition of approval, if this goes forward to city council, a parking management plan, and it'll be something that requires annual review and potential changes. And one of the things that would likely be in that parking management plan are earmarked spaces for the residents. So they may have to assign. These are going to be rental units. So when you rent the unit, you may get these spaces. These 2 spaces are your parking spaces, and then have a certain number for guest spaces. There would be, I think, 8 guest spaces, and then a certain number for the commercial uses. So the commercial spaces could be labeled as such, but I think where you're coming from, it's going to be a
Yeah,
little bit
and
difficult.
just because I'm in property management and I know that not everyone will park in designated, spaces. And I can just already can see the frustration of the residents where public is parking in their assigned parking space.
Mhm.
Um,
For the store owners.
Right, yeah. That's something to think about. But, okay.
Yeah, Cynthia brings up a good point. Where is the customer parking for the laundromat and the convenience store?
It hasn't been identified in the site plan, and that could be a recommendation that the commission has to identify. What I was envisioning at the staff level was and we've had a similar requirement for some of the other developments that have gone through recently, where there's a parking management plan that identifies what spaces are for what uses, and then provides some compliance components that the city staff can follow up on if there are problems.
Do you know what the width of Fourth Street is? Once
It's
this
not very wide.
goes in, because if people are gonna try to park in front of this to utilize those businesses, I don't know if that's enough room.
Yeah,
I drove by it today and I can't even picture this there. That space is so narrow. and
Yeah, you're right.
small.
so it will be improved. I don't remember offhand if there's parking on the frontage of Fourth. I'm gonna make a couple notes of things to look at, and we might need to take a 2-minute recess so I can look into those and have answers. So
When I ride through there, and I ride through there quite a bit, there isn't much room from the east side of Fourth Street to that fence there, like county fence. So it's like Steph says, that's gonna be hard to accommodate parking over there. And parking right now in Greenfield's become sort of premium now. Bob was here, he'd go off on that. You know he would.
Yeah. Okay, I have a quick question. Is it appropriate for me to state my concerns here during the public hearing, or do you want me to save that for planning commission discussion and decision?
I think it would be good to open it for the public hearing, and then following that, we could have commissioner comments.
Okay. All right, so if there's no further comments, I'll open up the public hearing. Are there any public comments?
Good evening, Jessica Batista. I have a couple of concerns about that area and Fourth Street being narrow, but if you can picture Oak Avenue, Freeway Xing, and Fourth Street, that area there, I drive every day, is kind of dangerous. And I hope that the chief can kind of tune into that, because the traffic that would be brought into this little area with ag trucks, everything that goes on in that little is very dangerous. There's a lot going on in that little intersection there. The Apple side being underdeveloped wouldn't be a way to be bringing in traffic, because you'd be bringing in a bunch of traffic in from a neighborhood. My other concern is convenience store alcohol. We have an AM PM that serves that, and we have an open market on each corner that serves that. I would really encourage our planning commission to kind of step it up a bit and maybe encourage a deli, a grocery store, something outside of beer, wine. The laundromat. Kind of think that that's also kind of, bottom of the barrel. I really think that the apartments should have their own washer dryer hookup. And we shouldn't appeal to the neighborhood to be, bringing in their laundry with their strollers and stuff that you do see. It's a dangerous intersection. And I think convenience store laundromat is something we can do better, and I would encourage you to do that. You mentioned 3 stories. If I remember back, Creek Bridge / Stone Bridge, I have some serious concerns with that whole Creek Bridge project because of the parking issues and the nightmare that goes on in that whole development. But the 3 stories, if I remember correctly, back then, we did not have a fire truck that was able to reach that high. Has that changed? That has not changed. So that is a serious concern when you bring in 3 stories. Another thing, 1.4 acres is not a big piece of property. It sounds big when you say 1.4, but it's actually not. So to cram 32 multifamily units, I think that space is very small. So just consider that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online or Zoom or hands up?
There's no more comments.
Okay. All right, so I'll close the public hearing. Now we're on planning commission and discussion.
Okay, I'll hit on this a little bit. I'm with Mrs. Batista. I think we have more than adequate stores that sell beer and wine. I've mentioned this previously, and I really don't like to talk about it, but it has to be addressed. I feel it has to be addressed. Years ago, I had a really close relative of mine who was killed by a drunk driver. That drunk driver had bought liquor, whatever, at a gas station that sold beer, just like we have here at that one there at the corner of Oak. So I do not begrudge people for selling alcohol. That's their prerogative. They're trying to make a living just like we all are. But I just don't like the idea, especially in such a close proximity to residents. I have a problem with that. One of my other concerns is, and is starting to concern me even more than it had in the past, that Greenfield is starting to grow in leaps and bounds. I mean, we have like construction going on everywhere. And it's good for our community that we're actually growing. But that being said, we have an ongoing problem that doesn't appear to going to get solved really quick. This water crisis, it's going to get bad. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better from my perspective. And with all these homes that are going up, we're just going to be using more water. I have a close friend of mine who lives over in the Saudette Mission District. He farms out there, okay? I was talking to him like maybe 10 days ago. He was telling me that one day he went to turn on his pump so he could irrigate his fields and his pump went dry. He says, well, later on that afternoon, he had enough water to be able to pump out, but his aquifer was starting to really go down. And I see that as a potential problem here within our community. I mean, I don't want to see people living in garages, 4 or 5 families living in one home, because there isn't any homes available for us, any affordable homes. But that being said, I'd rather see that happen than us run out of water. That bothers me. That bothers me that one day I'll get up in the morning and go turn water, I'll brush my teeth, and there's no water in the faucet. That scares me. And it should concern all of us. Now, people might say, well, Commissioner Gallardo, he's got his house, so he's got nothing to worry about. Well, yeah, I do. But this water situation, I'm being redundant here, should concern all of us, not just a few. Okay, so that's my 10 cents worth, my 2 cents was free.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or things to discuss?
I have one more question. Can you go back to that slide with the front and back? I'm just trying to picture it. Is that in our, I couldn't find it. Is it on our packet?
It's on the website.
Oh,
It's not in your packet.
okay.
Sorry.
It's okay, Rob, we're on your dime, doesn't matter. We'll just put another quarter in.
Okay, now I got it.
Is the front facing the highway or the back?
The front, so the lower fig. Sorry, Commissioner Zavala, the lower figure of these two is the front of the building that's facing Fourth Street. The upper, what's called the back isometric, is the view theoretically from the adjacent residential units looking west. So that's the back of the property.
So the easiest way to explain that is the front isometric is facing the freeway.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Scribbling furiously. Do you have anything?
No, I just have the same concerns that have been raised already about safety. I remember the fire chief coming at one point and talking about the streets and how narrow they were, and I just wish that he were here I would like to have his input on this project like this. And I do have concerns about selling alcohol, that it'd be another place where we're doing that in this community, and so safety is the priority for me right now. When I look at this, I'm not convinced that we're ready for something like this, that we can accommodate this.
So if I may, Chair Garcia, the applicant has just pinged me and said that he thought this was on the 13th, which it was tentatively scheduled for the city council on the 13th. Where there's a couple options. You've already closed the public hearing, I think. You could, we could take a few minutes and have him participate by Zoom. You could continue the item to your next meeting. I think the applicants would be upset if that were the outcome, but I also feel like because they're not here to answer questions back and forth and you very close a public hearing, that may be the best thing to do, but it's either of those options are fine. I can, Austin, has Mr. Elliott contacted you? Would probably want to take maybe a 5-minute recess if you want to pursue either of those. Otherwise, you can continue your deliberations and make your recommendation.
So what's the protocol for reopening a public hearing? Is that allowed?
I think if there's you can vote on it, and if the majority of the council would like to reopen it, then we can see if we can get the applicant on Zoom.
Okay, I'd like to entertain that vote and then take a 5-minute recess so everybody could gather their bearings.
Okay.
So is anybody inclined to reopen the public hearing so the applicant can participate?
Well, I think if for whatever reason you're not able to locate him on Zoom, we should move forward on this. He should be here so we can
I
address the
think you
question.
mentioned that he is trying to get on Zoom, right?
Well, I understand that,
Oh, okay.
but I'm saying if he doesn't.
Oh, I
make it this year.
Is he on Zoom? I can't see anything here.
Oh,
Nothing
well,
happens.
we would get him on during the recess, I think.
You gonna try? Is there consensus? Okay,
Yes.
we have consensus to let him attempt to get on Zoom. We'll reopen the hearing and we're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
And I get to do this.
Love him. Get 5 minutes. Mrs. Martinez, you're gonna have to stay over and you gotta write on the blackboard, I will never be late again. 50 times. No, we're on Mexican time.
You're the one that allows people to come on. As online. Do you have anybody? Get them on before we end the recess.
They should be able to.
You have to let them in, or? But you'll have to promote them to a panelist, I think, so if you can share a screen to do a presentation. Oh, we can share a screen.
Hang on, I was just wondering how we got it. I just said, I do recess.
Yeah, I have Greenfield resident and JB. I would have David Elliott. Unless he's JB. Would it show up? Not seen how to come on. Oh. Well.
So. ¿Qué pasó? So what happened? I got 5 minutes now, sweetie.
So are we at the 5-minute mark?
Not Mexican time, American time.
Okay, we're going to reopen the public hearing on our second item, which is the consideration of a resolution recommending that the city council approve a rezone, general plan amendment / land use designation change, zoning code text amendment, conditional use permit and design review permit for the development of a 3-story, 36,400 square foot building with 32 multifamily residential units, a convenience store and laundromat on a 1.42 acre project site on the east side of 4th Street between Apple and Palm Avenues. And this APN is incomplete because it should be 9 digits, but we have here 024-011. So we've already gone through the staff report, and this public hearing is to hear from the applicant if he wishes to speak. Now's the time.
Any hands raised in the audience?
No, we don't have any hands raised.
Okay. Is he there?
There's one hands raised.
Good day, Planning Commission. I just have you guys are saying about, you guys are concerned about selling alcohol. However, when there was that proposal to extend the hours for the cannabis, why didn't you guys consider that we already have a problem with drug addicts, driving under the influence, selling at schools, and also the apartments in Walnut, that there is the smell there, all those apartment complexes that are being built. There's not a concern on that, but there's a concern on what is being proposed right now. That's all.
Thank you for that.
And who was that? Did she mention what her name was?
We do have another comment. Actually, 2 more.
Okay. I can't see anything, so I can't call on anybody, but I see 3%. This doesn't.
I just have a question. Are those apartments that you guys are proposing, are they for low income or for medium income people?
Can you get your name, please?
My name is Gabby.
Gabby, from the staff report, it looks like they're going to reserve 8 of the units for low income. I'm not sure if it's very low or extremely low or just regular. Low. But yeah, 8 units would be set aside for that, and the remaining would be market rate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have one more. User 815670, you're allowed to speak.
Hello, this is David Elliott. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, I want to apologize. For some reason, I had next Tuesday assigned for this, my fault. And I'm available for any questions you have. I think you just had a question that I heard regarding the low income housing. And we're doing 24% low income housing, which is 8 units. So we have 4 3-bedroom units and 4 2-bedroom townhouse units available for low income housing.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions you have? I'm so sorry to not be there in person.
Madam Chair, this is Rob Moline. Thank you, David, for joining via phone. There are 2 other questions that came up during the planning commissioner's questions. And one was regarding the laundry hookups where there, for the multifamily housing units in the development, are there any laundry units, any washer dryer in those units, or is everybody all the residents expected to use a laundromat downstairs?
Yeah, there are no laundry units in those, in the units. So initially, we were just going to have those available for the for the residents. And now we're opening that up to the public as well. So we're encouraging all of the residents to use the laundry facility that's downstairs.
Madam Chair, if I may relay the second question.
Please.
So the second question, Mr. Elliott, that came up was the width of 4th Street, the improved width, and how that relates to the existing width. Is the street getting widened? What will the resultant width be from curb face to curb face?
I don't have that plan right in front of me. However, it's our intention to have that meet the street standards of the city of Greenfield. And so that's, so there's two-way traffic. There's ability to park on the curbside near the apartments. And so it meets the city standards is what the intention is.
And sorry, Chair, for the back and forth on this. So there's parking allowed on the west side of 4th Street along the landscaping for the new development, but there would be no on-street parking on the east, or on the west side, rather. There's parking on the east side, not on the west side.
That's correct, because we're really pushing it right toward the edge of the ability to have a road there as we enter into the Caltrans area and the freeway. So we're right at the width that we need to be.
Okay, Mr. Elliott, there was a question too. Is there an elevator in this project?
There is not an elevator in this project. You have to have 4 stories by the building code to require an elevator. So there's only 1 story. So you have the ground level and there's residences on the ground level. You come up 1 level and then you enter the townhouses, which are 2 stories, but you're inside the building when you access the third level. So it's really technically, as far as accessibility, it's a 2-story building.
Are there any residents on the 1st floor?
Yes, there are. Yeah, we have 4 units that are accessible units. So we have 4 accessible units that are on the ground level, and they're all 3 stories. I mean, 3-bedroom units. So a good family with a handicapped person is served on those units at the ground level.
And they're single level?
That's correct. And there's there's accessible parking right in front of the entrances.
Okay, well, are you going to have any parking restrictions to prevent overflow into the neighborhood? And I don't see how you're going to accomplish that by opening a convenience store and a laundromat to the public in addition to the limited parking spaces you have for the project.
Well, actually we have in excess of the parking that's required for the residences. We also meet the requirements as if it were a commercial development. So we meet both requirements for the parking. And then we certainly have some off-site parking along the street, but it shouldn't be necessary because we've met all the parking requirements for the commercial and the residential.
I think that remains to be seen. Parking is a huge issue in the city of Greenfield. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but we all are. And also, why did you decide to have some 3-bedroom units with 1.5 bathrooms and some with only 1 bathroom? I don't think that's sufficient. I think 3 bedrooms require a minimum of 1.5 bathrooms, if not 2.
There's no building code requirement that requires that. It's the accessible units have 2 bathrooms, so that the accessible unit, the accessible bathroom is accessible, and then there's a second bathroom for the rest. But 3, it's very common to have only 1 bathroom in a 3-bedroom unit. And we're accommodating, most developers do not even even try to provide 3 bedrooms. So we're looking for meeting the needs of large families, which I believe is a basic need for Monterey County right now, with the state coming down to ask all the cities and counties to make room for additional housing because of the crisis with people not having any homes to be in. And so we've gone the extra mile to have the 3-bedroom units.
Okay, I understand that, but we're not, we're here as basically laypersons. And we're here because we understand our community. And, you know, for me, it's a quality of life issue, is why I mentioned the need for 1.5 to 2 bathrooms. And speaking of quality of life, I think that laundry hookup should be in the units. I can't imagine living in the back section on the 3rd floor, having to cart my laundry all the way to the front of the building just to do my laundry after a hard day's work. So that again is going to the quality of life concern that I have here.
Well, I understand your concerns. However, remember, there's only one level from the main level of the townhouses. There's only one level down to the laundry facilities.
I guess if we had a better layout of the units, you would understand. I still don't understand, you know, like how.
Okay, so I've got a question here. We're talking about the laundromat here. Are the residents going to be able to install like a smaller washing machine in their condos?
They're not planned at this time for us to do that. So they're planned to have the laundry facility available for all of the tenants.
So that's the only way they're going to be able to do their laundry is go to a laundromat. There's no.
That's how it's designed, correct?
And it's, they have to pay, right? It's not free.
Correct.
I also see in the staff report that the project proposes new sidewalk, curb, gutter, and street landscaping along the frontage of Apple and 4th. What about 4th Street itself? Who's going to take responsibility and repave that, because it is.
Well, the civil plans show that.
They need a horse and carriage to get through that road.
Yeah, the civil plans show the fully developed 4th Street. So that it's fully developed to meet the city standards. That was a requirement of the Public Works Department.
Now, can you offer us maybe a little more info as far as like the square footage of the condos?
They're on the plans, and there's over 1,000 square feet for these 3-bedroom units, which is quite adequate. And the townhouses are 2 stories, and they're a couple thousand. They're not quite. They are 1,000 square feet also. It says right on the front sheet of the plans.
Well, the plans weren't attached to our agenda. Was everybody able to access the plans, or just what we've seen tonight?
I mean, I wish we would have had it.
I can access them if you give me just a minute here.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this is Rob Moline again, as he's looking that up. Because the plan set was such a large document, we couldn't include that with the packet except as a link. So there was a link in your packet that pointed to a city web page that had the plans. And until we figure out a way to send via email larger files, that's going to be difficult for these more complicated projects. But I can tell you what the square footage of the units are. The The development includes 14 1,028 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhome style apartments. And then 14 1,045 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartments. 4 1,045 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath accessible apartments. So they're around 1,000 to 1,045 square feet in size, and they're all three. I'm sorry, they're not all three bedroom. There's 14 that are 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhomes. There's 14 that are 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartments, and then 4 that are 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath accessible apartments.
Thank you, Rob.
I have a question, well, a concern again with the whole parking. So you have 82 parking spaces, and this is a 32 unit property. And if everyone owns 2 cars, that leaves you with 18 parking spaces available only for everyone else to park, to do their laundry or come in and, you know, to the store. That's not a lot of parking.
Yeah, I agree with you to a point. And however, the state has passed laws beginning January of 2021 that requires 1.5 spaces per unit. Now, you may think that is difficult if everyone has 2 cars. However, the purpose here of that law is to generate new residential where it wasn't available, to give credit for residential that wouldn't have been built otherwise. So we more than meet the requirement of 1.5 spaces, and then the rest is for the commercial use.
And I understand that, but there is a parking issue in the city of Greenfield. And I know that you are following, you know, compliance and all that, but we do have a parking issue, and that is a concern for all of us, I think, yeah, so.
Yeah, I understand your comment, but we meet we meet all the requirements.
I have another question. Will you have a manager unit on site that will?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we will. One of the units will be, one of the ground level units will be a manager's unit.
Do these units have AC?
They are, they don't have air conditioning. They meet the Title 24 compliances for fresh air, for and for heating. But the Title 24 does not require air conditioning in this particular area.
Okay, and do you plan to have surveillance?
Surveillance?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be part of the manager's requirement. And then we'll have a company that would do normal, normal surveillance, like a lot of apartments and commercial operations do. We're glad to add that to the conditions.
I think that's it.
And, I'm sorry, Steph. And I'm sure you'll have solar panels installed, correct?
That's correct. It's a state law now. We have to have solar panels. Yeah, they feed back into PG&E, and so everybody gets a credit on their PG&E bill.
Right. Okay.
If there are no further questions for Mr. Elliott, was the actual owner online? Okay, that was representative. Any other hands raised?
No, there's no more.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Move on to commission discussion and decision. It's okay, can I start? Okay, first of all, I think this is a first where there's so many components to this one resolution, but my initial concern is the rezoning and sacrificing our Highway 101 commercial zoning to accommodate this project. Our Highway 101 commercial zoning is finite. We only have so much for the city. And once we give it away to residential, it's gone. Ever since I've lived here, I've driven by that, a lot, and I'm waiting for a commercial business to go in there, be it a grocery outlet or some other kind of retail that will serve our growing population. We need retail. So that's my initial concern. And there was a question regarding the traffic and how difficult it is to navigate that area, and it really is. I can't tell you, I almost got crashed on Christmas Eve, right there. But there is part of the, I did click on the link, and there was a report from the traffic engineer. And under 2, general plan build out traffic operations, it says that the city of Greenfield has adopted a traffic impact fee to fund traffic improvement locations throughout the city. The improvements would include installing traffic signals at the Oak Avenue intersections with the southbound US 101 ramp, northbound US 101 ramp, and 4th Street intersections, as well as widening the existing bridge over US 101 to provide left turn lanes on Oak Avenue. And based on the results of the previous project traffic study, these are likely beyond what will be needed to accommodate traffic at the build out of the current general plan. So my question, I guess, to city staff is, how much do we have in that fund? And quite honestly, the Walnut Bridge is the one that seems to have priority as to widening with all the development that's going in that area. Because I mean, my last understanding of the bridge widening, it's millions of dollars, correct? And installing these traffic signals and all of that is going to, what, do we have money for that? And are we ready to do that?
Madam Chair, it's a good question. I do not know the status of that mitigation fund, how much is in that account. I would have to report back to the commission on that.
It seems like we'd be more reactive than proactive with regard to this project if we didn't have that safety mechanism installed and ready to go. And I do not like the proposed language change. What is that? The zoning code text amendment to specifically include uses such as laundromats, convenience store, neighborhood markets, and cafes. I feel like, you know, we get to guide the future of the housing that comes here. And I think that everybody deserves to be able to do laundry in their own home. And so I feel like if we include this, the word laundromats is just going to encourage more inconvenience to our current and future residents. So I don't like that term in there at all. So again, I am not on board for rezoning our highway 101 commercial zoning to accommodate this. Those are my thoughts.
I'm kind of thinking like Cynthia said a while ago. You're limited to parking for residents, and now you've got a laundromat in place. And people are going to be coming, it's like some of the other laundromats that we have in town, those are profitable businesses. Those places are always packed. So I'm sure the same thing is going to apply to this one here. And when people show up there to use that laundromat, it's going to impact the residents. I don't know. I'm just not happy about that.
I also want to echo Chair Garcia's sentiments. I agree completely. A lot of concerns.
Okay, so we are at decision time. And we heard the staff recommendation was to approve all 6 of these items. We have several alternatives. We can recommend denial of the proposed general plan map amendment, land use element text amendment, rezone, and zoning ordinance text amendments and direct the applicant to redesign the project in accordance with existing general plan designation and zoning. We can recommend approval of the proposed general plan map amendment and zoning map amendment, but recommend denial of the land use element text amendment and the zoning ordinance text amendment of the proposed general plan and zoning code map and text. And we can recommend approval of the project with specific revisions noted, or we can recommend some other combination of approvals, revisions, or denial. I'm gonna make a motion to deny.
I second.
Did you just make the motion or? Okay. Cynthia, did you second this? Rudy?
Yes, I did.
We have a motion and a second.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, your motion would be to recommend that the city council not take the various actions. You're in a
Yes.
recommending role rather than an approval
Right.
deny.
Deny the recommendation.
Okay,
So
so are you talking about alternative number one, which is the recommend denial of the proposed general plan map amendment, land use element?
is that everything?
Yes.
Yes. So do you want me to say that out loud?
No, that's helpful to verify. I think you're going through the alternatives and you said I'd like to move that we denial. So you clarified that that's the alternative number one.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we can move on to G, other business. Our first item is code enforcement efforts status report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Just a status update on our code enforcement efforts and what we're proposing to do in the future. Everybody's had problems with code enforcement operations. We've had some personnel issues. We have some new people on board for learning. Speaking in the past with Commissioner Gallardo, this message was left for our code enforcement that we never received, we never called back. So there's been a certain amount of inconsistency and failures from the side of code enforcement. So what's waiting for that, we had movement in the building, we're moving spaces, so internet lines, the phone lines, that's been fixed now. We also have direct lines for our code enforcement officer. And we recently hired another, so we have two. However, that's still not good enough. What we propose to do, and what we're proposing probably the second city council meeting in September, is that we have 2 animal control officers, we have 2 code enforcement officers. We're going to combine them to community service officers. Everybody's going to be cross-trained. So all 4 are able to do code enforcement, animal control, and service type duties. That way, throughout all 7 days of the week, from 7 to 5, and on various days, we'll go later in the evenings, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we can have full coverage. That's probably one of the better solutions that we have, even as we rotate people through the code enforcement or the CSO, community service officer positions, because it is a feeder in the law enforcement as well. Some of our personnel do have aspirations to become law enforcement, and we love that. That's great. That's real people from within. So as they get trained up, and there will be more tenured people on the job training, we send them out to the training. Everybody can help teach everybody, so that way there's 4 continuous people able to do the work instead of just 2 or maybe 1. In addition to that, we're also redesigning the city website. And on the city website, we're gonna have direct links where client, residents, you go through, click, send a message directly to the service officers. And it's not just gonna be them, it's also gonna be the sergeants and our record personnel. So there's gonna be a group of people that receive the messages. Therefore, there's no reason why there should be a response that action should be taken. So those are just some of the simple efforts that we're gonna work on here in the near future. That is what we're gonna have.
Okay, does anybody have any, oh, we get to do public comment. Are there any public comments?
There are no comments.
Public comments in house?
What is it? Your time limit is 5 minutes?
Hello again, Jessica Batista. And I think I might be standing here as the code enforcement chair, since that board was never really dissolved. So please don't start my 3-minute call. Since 2007, 2008, I have been a strong advocate for a healthy, safe community, improve, blight issues that we have been facing for decades in this town. I think COVID took a toll, but I think COVID was a great time for this city to focus on code enforcement. You see various problems in yards, appliances, equipment, garbage, just random stuff thrown in people's yard. Trailers, RVs, boats, cars parked on lawns. That has become normal. And we have codes that say that that's not allowed. But for some reason, we've all become complicit and we've accepted it. If you say something, you're the bad person. I think if we just start with what's already on the books and enforce it, educate the community, then it's a start. Put something in the Greenfield newspaper. Put something on your website that says in 6 months, we're coming for you. There's no more excuses. I think that's why people just say they want to build a laundromat here and they want to give us another convenience store, because that's what you see in our community. This overcrowding, the poverty, the crime that goes along with it, it's statistics. And we've taken a community police academy class. I've sat on these code enforcement boards that for whatever reason, those positions become political. And the board was dissolved for no apparent reason. Just, they don't want to meet anymore. No reason whatsoever. And there's no checks and balances for our current code enforcement. And I believe coming up and saying that they're new, I cannot accept that. Our community voted a couple of years ago for Measure V and VW, which we said as a community that code enforcement was a high priority. And we wanted to improve the appearance of our community. So since then, we have been taxed, and we're taxed and measured for days. But we get nothing from it. We get taxed, we pay the salaries of these positions, and we get nothing. May I please continue?
Is there consensus to let her go beyond the 3 minutes?
Thank you.
We have somebody here.
In October, I came to your board and I talked about various concerns in my neighborhood just right across the street. Today, here we are in September, and all of those issues are still there. Vehicles up on jacks, trailers. Code enforcement told me at my door that in order to have those items removed, that I needed to get my friends to put it on the ballot. That's unacceptable because you should know that that's not the way that it works. If our municipal code is preventing our code enforcement officers from doing their job, then we need to amend our municipal codes. These were written in the 70s and 80s. Springfield was a very different time than what we have today. So code enforcement, planning commission, city council, it's broken. And that is why I believe that there's a big turnaround. Code enforcement can't do their job because the municipal code doesn't allow them to. So in a sense, this Measure VW and this code enforcement and this tax is a scam for us residents. It looks pretty and it says we have code enforcement. You pay for it. But in my one little neighborhood, nothing has gotten done in a year. And this is across the board. I think if we look at it as a grid and say, this is the area we're going to focus on first, and then we're going to move on to the next portion of Greenfield, it can get done. But if you look at it as a whole, yeah, it's overwhelming. But it's because we let it go for too long. And it's time that somebody has to take action. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments, hands raised?
There are no more comments.
I see. I have 2 raised hands.
Excuse me. We just received 2 more comments.
I don't know what to do. Oh, you did.
Good day again, Planning Commission. My name is Laura, and regarding code enforcement, again, like this lady was saying, she's speaking all the truth. We have code enforcement that is not doing its jobs. There's so many code violations in this community, and it's just ridiculous. You see them pass by through houses, and they just look the other way. They don't bother to get off of the car and do the reports or give the tickets to the car that's been parked therefore over the 3 days, the 72 hours. Garbage in front of the houses, lawns that looks horrible. I mean, we are overstaffed. I think we are overstaffed with the people that we have right now. However, they're just collecting a paycheck and not doing their job. This has to stop. If they can't do their job, make house cleaning. We need new staff that is actually going to do their work. I mean, we as residents are paying so much tax money for people that are not doing their job. Let's get them out. I've been a victim of several code violations by the staff, and yeah, only when I speak up, that's when everybody's saying sorry. But this has to stop. The community needs changes now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I would just like to comment that it would be really nice if we actually got an answer from someone of when there's a complaint or when there's concerns being brought up, why aren't they followed or come up with?
Can
That's all.
your name, please?
Oh, my name is Gabby.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you for that comment.
There are no more comments.
Okay. All right, I'll close out public comments and move to planning commission discussion.
Okay.
You want to start?
Well, first of all, Mrs. Batista, I was told some time ago that Code Enforcement Board, because I was on there along with you. I said I was on the board with you. I had been told it never had been dissolved. I was told that I was still on the board. But that being said, no, I'm being serious now. I'm being serious. If I am on the board, I had one meeting and that was like, what, 7, 8 years ago? Yeah, so what happened to the board? well, I don't know. I never heard that. But anyways, oh, one thing here. I think from my perspective, when people call in to voice an opinion, they should identify themselves also with the last name, not just the first name. Okay, like we have this Gabby and Laura. I mean, I think they should have told us what their last name was. Okay, so the code enforcement issue. Oh boy, do I have a lot of issues with that. Oh my God, I could go on for days, but I didn't bring a lunch with me, so I'm gonna cut it off. I spoke at length one time with Captain Mixer here, and I appreciated that. I really did. I voiced my opinion as to what I thought the CEOs weren't doing their job. And I'm still not convinced that they are doing their jobs, because I see so many abandoned vehicles throughout our community. There was one that was parked on the intersection of 10th Street, 10th and Oak, a blue Oldsmobile that was a Pontiac. Tires were flat on it. It sat there for months and months and months. And finally, they got it hauled off in the last couple of weeks. But to their credit, there was a couple of weeks ago when they were over near the post office on 9th Street and they were hauling a lot of cars away. And people were out there yelling at them. So I can see why the CEOs maybe don't want to do their job because of perhaps they're getting threats. I don't know. But from my perspective, if you're being intimidated and you're afraid of doing your job, then you shouldn't be in that position, because that's what you were hired for. I like the idea that Captain Mixer came up with about splitting shifts so we have more coverage. That's a great idea. I've seen on several occasions, and it bothers me, where we have a code enforcement officer with another person on board. Now, is that person learning, or are they just kind of like kicking it, riding around, BSing with each other? If we have two that are on the same shift, perhaps we should offer another one a vehicle. I know in the past, and this was years ago before you were even here, one of the CEOs had an old police car, and the other one had a truck or whatever she was driving. But I do see some progress going forth. But it's unsad, like Mrs. Batista comes up here and voices her opinion, and then somebody will start bashing her because she's talking about what she feels needs to get done. And we see a lot of that in our community. It's like people are reluctant to really voice their opinion. And, but yeah, there's room for improvement. Of course there is. But I think Captain Mixers is taking a step forward, and by splitting shift, we're gonna have more coverage. But then within our community, there's certain, I don't know, it's like, and again, this is my personal perspective. The people don't want to get involved unless it happens in their backyard. And if it doesn't happen in their backyard, they don't care. So it's like you could go to, I don't know, say over where Steph lives, over in that area, and it looks nice and clean, except for a few individuals. I mean, then they're parked every which way, and I know I've seen that. And maybe because it's a more affluent community or affluent neighborhood, the code officers don't go over there. Maybe they're over here on the west side of town where the houses are run down more and you have cars parked on lawns and you have cars parked on top of sidewalks. Just when I left to come over to the meeting, my neighbors on my south side, there's these young boys who come over. They have a big giant Ford pickup with jacked up in the air. And the first thing they do is park right on top of the sidewalk. And they're there for hours. And I've actually seen where police officers will drive by and it's like my wife tells me, I have selective eye loss. Or I have selective hearing. You only see what you want to see. I've seen that before. And I mean, it's like, okay, so maybe I'm going to get some officers upset at me for saying that, but it's the truth. And my dad told me years ago,
If you're speaking the truth, you don't have to worry about what you said. If it hurts people, that's because they don't want to hear the truth. But I see that a lot. I mean, it's like, is it up to the police officers to come every time they see somebody parked on the sidewalk? Or is it up to the CEO to do something about it? Okay, sometimes I feel like the CEOs, they have a lot on their plate, but that came with the job. And again, I'm being redundant here. If you can't do your job, then speak up and say, I just can't handle it. But yeah, we're moving forward, but not at the pace that I'd like to see. I mean, because there's still a lot of abandoned cars throughout the community. I'll give you a perfect example. And maybe I'm nitpicking here, but it's the truth. This was months ago. The code enforcement officer was parked just like a couple of the houses down from me on San Antonio. And there was another young lady with her. And I said to her, I walked up and I identified myself. I said, I'm the planning commission, blah, 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 blah. And she says, okay, yeah. I said, would you go around the corner here? And there's a house over there where the front windows are broken out and they got garbage parked all over in front of the yard. And there's no lawn there, and they got a car up on top of the lawn. I said, could you go over and look at that? And she says, okay, we will. So I said, thank you very much. And I left. And what did she do? She made a U-turn and went the other direction. Now, is that what they're supposed to do? No. And that really bothered me. And I think I addressed that with you, if I remember correctly. That bothered the heck out of me. But again, it comes down to, you want to do your job or don't you? I mean, there's consequences for not doing your job. And I mean, those are the people who need to be called up on the carpet. It's like, okay, it's time to have a serious talk here. Okay. So I've gotten calls. Well, I haven't gotten honest calls. I've got stopped by people who are saying that they call code enforcement and they never even return their calls. But maybe that's what Captain Mitchell was talking about, that the lines were all crossed up. Yeah, so I can appreciate that. So maybe now that the lines are all fixed, people will get better communication from them. Okay. So I sincerely appreciate what you're doing now. So yeah, so let's move forward.
Thank you for that. Any other comments on code enforcement?
Thank you for the update. I understand why, people were not getting an answer back or respond, but like Ms. Batista said, she's had these concerns or complaints since October 2021, almost a year. I don't think that's all right. I hope it gets better with this new website update. I hope we advertise it on our social media. That way our residents know and they can call it in and voice their concerns. I also wish we had a lot more comments here or on Zoom, because 3 comments, and this is a big issue on social media. It's big, a lot of comments, but this is where you need to come and speak up and voice your concerns, because yeah, we see it on social media, but nothing's going to get done there. So I wish we had more people here. I do have a question. How many code enforcement vehicles do we have?
Currently, we only have 1. And we're in the process of getting new police vehicles, which I know police vehicle within the second code enforcement vehicle.
Okay.
And take a quick minute to answer the question. Yes, right now our 2 code enforcement officers are right together. We're partnered up because one is so new, he still needs to learn. So that's why they're together, which also adds to the problem, because now we just have a small portion of the covered versus the entire.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I hope it gets better. I see the frustration with our community. I'm frustrated myself. I walk around the block every day and I can see 5 violations just around my block. And so I understand the frustration there. So I hope there is an improvement. And if there's anything that we can do to help code enforcement, get better, please let us know. You have our support. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, and all the comments are well taken.
My turn. I'm glad that we're going to do some cross-training because that is going to address that issue of response time that was brought forth. And also, I just have a question. I'm not sure if the folks can answer this, but there's definitely interest in a code enforcement committee, and folks here, I've already heard two people say that, they want to do something and take an active role. What is it going to take for us to be able to reenact that committee or to revive it? Is that something the city council needs to step in and appoint?
I think it's something that we should talk to the city manager about. I think the planning commission has made it clear of what the sentiment is. And we should bring it up to the city manager and work together to reestablish that. So that's my idea.
And I think it's timely also, and from what, we're the same mindset, so we see it's a perfect opportunity to get this commission going because it's been necessary. So, yeah, hard support.
Well, I'm sorry, but the premise of having a committee was so people could come up and appeal if they got cited for something. I remember, some time back, after the committee had gone away, this one lady got a $50 fine because she said she left her lawnmower on the sidewalk. And she got a fine for $50. And she says, well, I want to go to the board. I said, we don't have a board anymore. So I don't know how it was resolved, but that was quite a while ago. But that was the premise of having a board.
For the record, I think that needs to be addressed at a senior level with the city manager, because in our regulations, the building official who's here tonight, thank you, Mr. Martinez, for being here, and the code enforcement officers were close almost every day, several times during the week. They're collaborating on some case. And Chief Mixer and I collaborate frequently as well on the same issues. So there's some gaps, and this is why we're here. We're going to address those gaps. The progress obviously isn't as fast as we'd like, and we're going to work on that. The committee that you're referring to, we talked about it at length because in our minds, it still exists, and we're cognizant of an appeal, and we just talked about it last week. In our minds, it still exists. So we'll need to, I think, probably put it on social media as we get more aggressive with code enforcement activity and have more cases. We're probably going to see more appeals, but that's just going to make it more of a public process. And that's what we kind of want, because a lot of this is probably, some of it, I should say, is probably messaging and educating. And I think everybody wants a nice, clean, orderly community. And that's actually what should be the end result. So I would say stay tuned, because I think we should have it as a permanent addition to our agenda so that we can report. As I said, we're trying to improve our reporting of these cases as well, so that you know what the code enforcement officers are actually doing in terms of numbers and cases. I don't know, Chief, do you have anything to add? But we operate on the premise that committee is operable.
It's actually a board. It was a code
Right.
enforcement board.
Right.
And the city attorney at the time, I believe, was Jennifer Frott. She put it all together and did all the legal requirements. And I think was there a seminar or some kind of training that was required?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trained.
Yep.
Mhm.
The board, basically what the board's other main focus was making sure that the code enforcement officers were working. So we had a quota, we had to make a certain new contracts, you had to show us the follow-up, we had a spreadsheet.
Right.
They had to, the whole point was you have to earn your wage, so you were hired to work at yeah, it was, that's when the focus was, we needed to see numbers, we needed to see the work, that was the main focus.
Transparency.
How long did this go for?
Not very long. Didn't go for long.
Correct. At the beginning stages, it was putting a puzzle together. So we didn't see a whole lot of community members come forth. We were building something. And I think at the minute we got legs, it kind of fizzled away. Because it was going to be very active and it was going to be great for the community. And it became something that, you know, just kind of faded away. But yeah, we were building something and it was going to be, it is a great board. I would encourage you.
Well, from my perspective, what it all amounted to was accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it all came down to, accountability. And Mr. Mugen, if I may ask you, if people currently want to file an appeal for something they've been cited, who do they go to now? Okay, sure.
So, for example, we do have one appeal. And that was, that has to go through the city clerk will be setting that. So that's why we talk about the important, because we make sure that we have every member available to listen to the appeal.
Yeah, because like I said, several people have stopped me when I'm out riding in town. It's like, oh, I don't want to stop, but I have to. And they've asked me, you know, it's like, so if I get cited, who do I go to? And I said, well, you know what, I'll make an effort to find out for you. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yes, they are more than welcome to reach out to the city clerk. She will be able to.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and those who called in. As we can see, this is an issue that many are passionate about. I'm not one of them. I actually have a refrigerator in my driveway. My husband put it there. I don't know how long it's gonna be there, but it's gonna get picked up. But I just wanted to mention too, that I disagree that Measure VW was a scam. I understand your frustration with the code enforcement component of it, but as somebody who worked on that campaign, it was to increase and improve public safety, which I think we have with our fire department and our police department. It's night and day. It also implemented our recreation program, which wasn't in existence. And yes, a lot of that money goes to staff, but they're, you know, it's building too. I mean, I think if we're going to see the payoff, they have, you know, more events, they have flag football, basketball, seniors, Zumba. So, I mean, and then of course, code enforcement was a vital component to VW. So I just wanted to state that. And I do believe that some solutions came forward tonight. I'm always happy to see solutions. I would like you to consider, okay, I have a question about the website that you're gonna be revamping. Is there gonna be a way to lodge a complaint if you see something anonymously? Because often I see stuff, but I'm like, okay, so I saw this vendor selling those fruits where you put the tapatio on, they're delicious. I wanted to buy one, I didn't. But I drove by and I'm like thinking, do you have a permit? Are you supposed to be there? But I didn't call it in because I don't think that's my job as a community member to do that. I think that's code enforcement's job to investigate that. But in instances like that, would your website accept anonymous complaints for those who feel they need to do so?
Yes, and that's the portion we're working on. Currently, a complaint can be made to Public Works, even though it doesn't say code enforcement, and some people do. So we get a couple a month, and they'll forward them to us. Hey, this is your department, great, thank you. So there is an avenue. It's not the greatest, and it's not clear how to get to it. That's why the VAMP website, with a make a complaint button that you can click, and then it allows you to put in the information, stay anonymous. That's what we're looking
Okay, and I think that, you know, this is an opportunity, just like our public safety was improved, our recreation is improved. With this issue, I think it needs to take a community approach. I think, you know, recalling the code enforcement board is a step, but also this is an opportunity to engage with the community and let them know that this is becoming or is a priority, and that we support code enforcement, like Commissioner Zavala mentioned, because it can't be easy. I went on a ride along years ago and I was with a rookie, and, you know, we knocked on doors and told people to get off lawns all night long. I mean, I didn't ask him to do that, but, you know, that's what he was into. So, but, you know, so I think that and it's not easy. People don't like to be told they're in the wrong and that there's a financial consequence. So I think maybe approaching it first with notice that it's going to happen, education on how to avoid being, you know, fined or cited. And I think that grid approach idea is a perfect way to start. You know, just start with a section at a time, because word will spread. I don't know if you're aware of the Greenfield grapevine. It's real. And again, I just want to reiterate that we do support your efforts, and, you know, I think this could be a positive growth for the city. Because at the end of the day, we all want to take pride in our city. We all want it to look nice for ourselves and our kids and our visitors. And I don't think that it's a bad thing at all. It doesn't have to be. Anything else? Okay, we can move on to the workshop on possible changes to the hours and days for construction activities. Staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be I think a brief report, but this is an item that's been continued several times, trying to get a full commission, and that's proved challenging, especially perhaps in the summer or day after a holiday. Let me share my screen here. All right. All right. So we have an issue of concern to several developers and people in the building community, but it really is a cost and benefit weighing. So every city has limitations on construction days and hours, or as far as I know. I haven't worked in a city that doesn't have some sort of limitation. There are those that are in the noise ordinance in Greenfield, and then oftentimes there is a condition of approval that is imposed either through the environmental review of development projects or as a standard planning condition of approval. And they not always line up. So there can be situations where the hours and the conditions of approval, for example, are more restrictive. And that's something that the commission can impose on a case-by-case basis. But what I have seen, at least in the last 3 or 4 years, is that it is more routinely that it's a Monday through Friday, no holidays, no Saturdays, no Sundays. And that is fine. There are lots of cities and counties that do that. There are also cities and counties that do things differently and have more expanded hours of construction or allow work on Saturdays. on even Sundays in some cases to decrease the overall project length. So why do we even have construction hours? I think they're intuitive, but it does reduce the disturbances to neighbors, whether it's noise, dust, construction traffic, parking of construction vehicles. So there's definitely benefits to having them. In the noise ordinance, the hours of construction say unless otherwise provided by permit. So there's your discretion as a planning commission on a project by project basis. Construction hours shall only be permitted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 o'clock p.m. on Monday through Friday, and between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So in the city's municipal code, when it talks about noise, it allows construction work on Saturday and Sunday. Now, again, the conditions of approval can be more restrictive than that. The it goes on to say extended construction work hours must at all times be in strict compliance with the applicable permit. Our standard condition of approval, which you've seen in many permits that have come before you in the last few years, have more restrictive hours, as I mentioned. It's Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that excludes holidays as well as Saturday and Sunday. Having limits on construction hour, obviously there's less disturbance to the neighbors if they're not working on Saturday, they're not working on Sunday. There's less construction related traffic on the weekends. However, on the downside, you'll have projects that take 12 months when they could take 10 months or 8 months. They could at least be 20% shorter if in addition to Monday through Friday, Saturday work was allowed. And then there are often challenging situations arise to community development staff when a developer has some extenuating circumstance and they say, we need to do this we need to work longer than 7 p.m. or we need to work into the weekend. So it's an opportunity for the commission this evening in this workshop to begin a discussion at least on if there is any desire to change the standard condition that's applied to projects. And primarily, I think the main question is, would the commission be interested either on a case-by-case or a routine basis allowing weekend work on Saturdays? So it really is a policy call. We don't really have a strong recommendation one way or another because there are benefits of doing more restrictive hours and there are benefits of doing more lenient hours. If, however, the commission were to be open to advise staff that Saturday or Sunday work should be allowed, we would recommend restricting those hours. Rather than the 7 to 6 timeframe, it would be a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., for example, or something like that. I also have seen in other municipalities where there's an explicit allowance in either the condition of approval or the zoning code that interior work that does not create a lot of noise or dust or things of that nature can occur on the weekends. And so painting, finished carpentry, things that nature could take place on those days. And that's, again, within your purview, or we could have that be part of the standard condition of approval. Exterior work is allowed on these hours and only interior work that is not of a noisy nature would be allowed on weekend hours. So for the discussion this evening, again, it's a starting point. You don't have to make a decision tonight. It's just an item that staff felt was important to bring to your attention. And there's an opportunity, of course, also to take any public comments, to ask questions of staff, have a discussion between staff and the commissioner among the commissioners. So we look forward to assisting in any way on this issue. That concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you for the report. Are there any public comments?
There are no comments.
Okay, close public comments, move to planning commission discussion and direction. So if you go case by case versus routine standard, would the developer come to us or go to the building department? How would that work?
Well, for projects that come before you for a design review or conditional use permit, things of that nature, then there would be a condition of approval that could be customized.
Okay.
Or you could have your standard condition, you can modify it at that hearing. There, for projects that don't come to the planning commission, that only go into building, that would be something that the building staff would need to know that there's an openness in the community to have, for example, work on weekends. And the building staff is looking at it primarily from the building code, which may have more broader allowances than what the standard planning condition of approval is. So, but again, I think as a planning commission, I think you have the, one of your roles to advise staff on policy changes. So this is one of those opportunities.
Okay, and this just only applies to big developers, like residents can do their own construction, or do these hours apply to residents who are, building stuff at their homes?
That's a good question. So the noise ordinance, the way it's written, it would apply to everything.
So Saturdays, we shouldn't be hammering?
Well, the noise ordinance is permissive, if I recall correctly. Let me
Oh.
go back. So in the noise ordinance, it's Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Mhm.
and then 9 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And it
Oh, I
doesn't
see.
talk about holidays at all.
Okay.
The standard conditions of approval for planning projects would come into play for larger projects, yes. So that's the ability to restrict that further.
So as it's written now, construction can occur on Saturdays.
Construction that doesn't require a planning permit, that would have a standard condition of approval that would limit it to typically Monday through Friday.
I see. So the permit is what limits them. I guess one other question is say, I'm kind of leaning towards okay on Saturdays, but then if that turns out to be a bother to nearby residents, can it be reneged?
If it's applied as a condition of approval, whether it's in general as a standard condition of approval or on a case-by-case basis, that is what they're allowed to do. And if there was a desire to change that and for a given project to go back to like Monday through Friday, it would need to come back to the planning commission and have the condition of approval adjusted.
This is where I wish we had public
Yeah.
input on this. So those are my questions. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question here. So if a developer, can they come in and ask for an exception and kind of like change the hours around for their particular project?
They can, and they often do.
Okay.
If it's a condition of approval that's imposed by the planning commission, for example, the planning director or the community development director has limited discretion in how extenuating circumstances are dealt with.
Right.
So I think in that case, the community development director might allow it for good cause on a weekend or a Saturday if there's, but I think if it was a routine thing, then the appropriate thing is to tell that developer, you need to go back to the commission and ask to have that condition of approval revised.
I don't know. I don't know. I've made complaints in the past for people working on a Saturday. And I don't know. I wish we had public comment.
Okay. Have anything on this one?
No, I'm not sure.
Again, Commission, it's not something you need to decide this evening. You can, I mean, we can introduce the issue now. We can have it on a future agenda, have Austin and Yesenia try to get the word out to people that are coming in for permits, but it's just something that we felt was important to bring to your attention.
Yep,
I like that.
I appreciate
I
that.
like that.
Maybe we could post something on the city's webpage that this is something that's being tossed around and see if there's any input that way. Okay, sorry, we don't have any specific direction.
Okay.
So we can go to our second workshop now, which is on the use of artificial grass in landscaping. Staff report.
And I'm pulling that up now. All right. I'll make this bigger. Let's try this. Okay, another policy item that staff wanted to bring to your attention for some input. And again, it could be a starting point of discussion. There's no urgency to taking action tonight. But we have seen, and given the ongoing drought and the press on the drought, we anticipate continuing to see more artificial turf used in landscaping. And a few recent big projects that have come through, the Walnut Grove phases 2 and 3, that project actually came through as grass as part of their landscape plan. But then when they got into the building stage, they, for water efficiency reasons and to meet the water efficiency requirements in the building code, they switched to artificial turf. And staff, this is one of the things that threw us a little bit for a loop. So in that case, is that substantially in conformance to what the Planning Commission wanted, or was it really an intent to have grass and not artificial turf? The cannabis dispensary on 4th Street, 4648 4th Street, higher level dispensary, they, and more recently a tool shed on 60 4th Street, both proposed artificial turf in the planter between the sidewalk and the buildings. And they had other landscaping as well, trees and shrubs. But they went with artificial turf, and we were, again, not sure where the commission felt, because there's pros of artificial turf and there are cons of artificial turf. And then again, we want to also get a handle on how do we advise applicants that are switching from one to the other. And it would probably be from grass to artificial turf at the building permit stage. So we're looking for guidance. Any guidance that you're willing or able to provide tonight or at a future meeting would be great. But here's some of the pros of artificial turf. And here's an example, not in Greenfield, but it's somewhere in California. I think it's in Northern California. The pros of artificial turf are obviously it needs no water or just occasional rinsing. If it's installed properly, it looks uniform and stays green. And that's a big if, because there are there are actually engineering specifications that need to be met for what the artificial turf goes on. And then you still have to figure out how you're going to convey the drainage, because it's not going to drain the same as grass. It's low maintenance. There's no mowing needed. You don't have to worry about dog spots, having areas that get burned because of too many nutrients. So those are the pros. The cons are that especially if it's a lower quality turf, it wears. It does need to be replaced or maintained. It can fade in time as some of these pictures depict. And it can get very hot in the sun. It's much, you know, it really absorbs heat and it's probably not suitable for areas like tot lots and things of that nature where you have kids that may be barefoot. The other con is it doesn't handle or process pet waste. So it can have odors, it can have stains, things of that nature. And then again, importantly, it needs proper ground preparation. And it's often installed without any ground preparation at all. And it gets this very haphazard contouring to it. So again, considering these pros and cons, if the commission has any strong feelings one way or another, we would really like to know that, and that'll help us guide decisions, particularly if people are making a change between the design review and the building permit stage. And there may be public comments. We may have to take a similar approach that we did for the construction hours. That concludes my staff presentation.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any public comments?
There are no comments.
Okay, thank you. Close public comment and move to commission discussion and direction. Anybody have some thoughts on artificial grass? What do gophers think of it?
I think they would, if there's any weeds around, they'll probably find a way to burrow through it, but I haven't seen that. That's a good question.
And did you say higher level has, and how's that working out?
Yeah, it's new, so they look good when they're new. It's just, you know, how does it look a year, 2 years, 3 years from now?
I think that we would just have to somehow implement conditions that they have to maintain it and rinse it. And if it becomes I hate to give code enforcement more work, but I mean, if it's becomes a, you know, problem, then they have to be required to maintain it. I think it's easier in the Walnut Grove facility because it's enclosed and they're responsible for their maintenance. And, you know, businesses, I think that would be easier to enforce. I'm curious on how how it withstood our current heat wave. So it's still kind of new.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. Keep in mind that there's also a standard condition of approval on maintaining landscaping, and that pertains to hardscaping, artificial turf. So if we saw a project that went through the planning commission process and had areas of artificial turf that needed maintenance, then we could point to that condition of approval and have them address that.
Any other comments on a direction for planning? I mean,
You know, the only thing I see, I mean, the pro would be it's going to save water by a significant amount of water. Okay, and like I addressed that earlier, I mean, we're in a dire situation right now with our water. The maintenance of it would be up to the owners of the property. And artificial turf, like anything else, over the years, it's going to fade. It's not going to be a bright green. It's going to start turning brown. It's going to lose its color. But then again, that's up to the people who own the property to maintain that. Now, at some point, does the city come in and say, you know what, it's starting to look really bad now, it's time for you to change it, right? So who's going to make that call, right?
well,
But it's kind of like you said, I mean, is it going to be to the CEO to come up and look at it and say, you know what, no, they've got a lot on their plate already. But I mean, the only thing, as far as I'm concerned, I like it because it's going to save us water.
comments? Okay, so. Thumbs
That's,
up.
no, that's fine. That's what we're looking for. Is what I'm hearing is that you're not opposed to it. There's not really concern if things get switched at the building permit stage, as long as it's maintained and properly rinsed. And just like any other landscaping, kept in good aesthetic condition.
All right, we are now on H, comments from planning commission and staff. I just had a real quick comment. I was able to tune into the AMBAG meeting when Mr. Mugen presented our appeal to the RENA number issue. And I just wanted to compliment you on your argument. It was well stated, and I think that was confirmed by the final vote. The entire board wasn't there, but if I'm not mistaken, I think the vote was 8-9, and we, was it an appeal? It was, yeah, and it was, but we lost by 1 vote. But I think that showed that that many, and AMBAG, if you're not familiar, it's cities throughout Monterey and Santa Cruz County. So they all had a say on our appeal. Santa Cruz chimed in, Capitola, all these other cities chimed in.
Did you read the Monterey Coast Weekly, the article they had on the Cerebrum?
No,
Yeah, sensitive article about.
I did not. But anyways, I wanted to compliment you on your presentation there, and it was a good fight.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Any other commission comment?
Like Fonzie used to go. No, I have a couple of comments here. One is on a personal note. And this is the last meeting that I was not here. I was trying to get on Zoom and I was able to, but I wasn't considered a board member. And I found that kind of odd because I was doing you guys a favor because I was very, very ill and I didn't want to infect you guys. So that's why I shut on. But yet, that being said, they said, no, you're just a general public. And that's not right. But that's just me, okay? Okay, the second comment that I had is, comes out of water again. At the intersection of San Antonio and Oak, right across from Oak Avenue School, there's a water line there that's been broken for like 5 weeks now. I have approached numerous people from maintenance, and probably not the correct ones. I haven't gone to the very top. The people that I've spoken to are the guys I see on the street working, whatever. And I made them aware of it. And they said, yeah, well, yeah, we know about it. We haven't gotten to it yet. They told me that last week. We're going to do it. I believe it was last Friday. He said, yeah, we're going to get to it this week. Well, they haven't gotten to it. Now, like I said, that's been going 4 to 5 weeks, at least, perhaps even longer. And you can just see the water just flowing down there. And it's actually, the water is getting all the way down to 12th Street along the curb. Okay, now, my concern is not, well, a lot because of the water loss, but perhaps as time goes on, it might develop a hole underneath, and you could be having a big truck driving down there and then boom, you got a big hole in the street. So I think that needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed pretty quick.
I will follow up on that. I would add that the Director of Public Works is aware of that.
Yeah, well, I know they're aware of it because they got a cone on top of it.
Let's
Well, I had
fix
a
it.
cone on top of it. Now it's on the side. Yeah, but it needs to be looked into real quick.
I do. So I wanted to comment on one of the public comments at the beginning of the meeting on the street lights or 12th Street. There are no street lights on that new phase 2 Magnolia apartments. There are no street lights. And I go back, it's a very dangerous, section of 12th Street. Kids are going to school, it's a very busy street, but I walk that street every night and it's dangerous. There's no street lights. So I wanted to know what's the update on that. And then we've mentioned before posting our meetings on social media. Today would have been a really good meeting if we had more public comments. I went on there today to check the Facebook page if there was a posting about our meeting today, and there wasn't. So I wish we did. And then that's it. That's all I got.
And Stephanie, have any comments for us?
Well, I'll step. They're not doing it at the job at that. Communicate better with the community. So our objective is better use or increased use of the staffing that we have. Of course, we have Shania new to our team. We expect to have some new hires in the not too distant future. Hope that that's going to make a big difference. Because we're going to be more. It's a vacuous space in our operation. It's not very good. I would also like to just mention that the RENA appeal involved ultimately our housing element. And so we've been in contact with the department, been in touch with various consultants to try and find one that we like to accomplish our housing element. As the chair mentioned, it's a very high priority for the government and everybody else who's tasked with it. I think that the city of Greenfield, and the mayor, of course, who chairs him, that had an important message to the decision makers, because most who voted against Greenfield's appeal are woeful deficient with building any type of very low income or even moderate housing in their community for a wide variety of reasons. So our department, who works very hard with the permitting side and the building official, to support what this planning commission is trying to accomplish in the city council. It's difficult when other jurisdictions aren't carrying their weight. The housing emergency in the state of California would be much less of an emergency if everybody helped one another and contributed a little bit to the solution. And our community certainly has done that. And our numbers at the beginning of last year, we have met what the state of California said our community needs in all 4 income groups. So I think the record really speaks for itself. I'll be quiet. So we'll be hearing more on the housing element because it's an important part of the general plan that we're going to be moving forward in the next year to further designate the land use and allocate areas for housing and commercial, and have put together a vision for what the community should look like 10, 20 years from today. Thanks.
Are there any other comments from staff? If not, meeting adjourned. Oh, sorry, what? Oh, the streetlights. So when 12th Street gets redone in front of Magnolia, the city's going to continue it. Is that the opportunity to install streetlights? Is that part of it? Okay, perfect. Okay, and do we have a time frame?
When, I'm sorry?
That's the senior homes that you're talking about? Yeah, but if I understand, the developer is gonna fix the road, right? Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Right, but I think Mr. Mugan and I have discussed this previously. That street actually belongs to the county. It doesn't belong to the city.
I think 13th belongs to county. 12th is-
No, you're totally wrong on that. That section of the street belongs to the county. I know that for a fact. We've been through that before. Okay, so is the developer gonna fix all of it? Okay. Yeah, because we went through this years ago, years and years ago. People were complaining, well, they still are about 12th Street and they have a right to. And then they said, well, the city needs to get on it, blah, 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 blah. And then they said, no, we can't because that belongs to the county.
I think
remember that.
half of it is county, half is.
Well, I understand that. But what I'm saying is when the developer goes out to fix it, are they just gonna fix the city side or are they gonna fix the whole thing?
We all get together and kumbaya that 12th Street situation for Christmas, please.
What the hell is Kumbaya?
Come with me.
No, really, what is that?
Okay, can I adjourn? Meeting adjourned.
No, that sounds like, that's not like from George Harrison, My Sweet Lord.
Maybe.
No,
I
I've never
learned
heard
it in
that. I've never heard
Campfire.
that.